Upstairs in that apartment, right in the center of your screen, lived a man named Vertus Hardiman. On June 1st, 2007, Vertus was found deceased in his apartment. He was 85 years of age and he succumbed to the effects of cancer. Now, he was a man just like many other people here in the world. Everyone has a story to tell. Their stories are more sad than others. Not many people knew this at the time, but Vertus had a story to tell the world, and that story was about the wrong that was done upon him 80 years ago when he was 5 years of age. So nobody would have ever really knew Vertus's secret other than a very few select amount of friends that knew what kind of mental and physical pain he had gone through because of this. One of the most hard to put words on the picture that you're looking at right now, one of the most heartbreaking pictures you would ever see. To see a man that have to live his life with that kind of wound on his head, basically living his entire life with a massive hole in his head. And a wound that when you look at it, you would say to yourself, well, how the hell, number one, did he live with that? And number two, can you imagine, again, the pain that he went through living with this? And every day that Vertus would wake up and go to work, he would take about an hour in the morning to dress the wound on his head before he would go to work. And so, as a young man, the confidence that is ripped from you because you have to deal with this, the thought of dating, getting to know a woman, and then having to tell her, this is why I always wear a hat, this is why I wear wigs, is because of this massive wound on my scalp. So one day, Vertus was in church and he was sitting by himself and he just all of a sudden started crying. And then one of the church members kind of went up to him to console him, and because it was out of his character to just all of a sudden start crying. So they said, well, what's the matter? And then finally he broke down and he removed his beanie. And when he removed his beanie, he showed him this massive wound on his head. And he told him the story of how he got this wound and what took place. So the story on how Vertus got that wound on his head, that hole in his head, goes as follows. So he was born on March 9th, 1922 in Lyle Station, Indiana. So when he was about 5 years old, he was in school at the time. And some people came to the school claiming that they were from the local county hospital in that area. And they were talking to the parents of these students, telling them that they were developing a new treatment for ringworm. Ringworm is a scalp fungal infection. And so they picked 10 kids. Vertus was one of the kids to treat them for this ringworm. So these kids go to the hospital in the area, and according to Vertus, he sits in his chair and they put this metal, like not a metal cap, but this weird kind of cap on his head. So one of the nurses, they put the cap on his head, he's sitting in the chair, and she goes behind this kind of wall thing. Like, when you get x-rays at the dentist and they hide, they go behind that protective lead door or screen. And all of a sudden he felt like a lot of heat. And one thing he remembers from that experiment, looking like at it now that it was, is that she says, oh my goodness, I gave him too much. Something along those lines. So all of those kids that these people were doing these experiments on, first of all, it's never been said what the purpose of this is. They weren't treating no ringworm. This was nothing but a weird experiment on kids that were poor and black. That's all there was to it. So maybe they would think that nobody would say anything about it. And all the kids that got this terrible thing done to them, they all suffered from intense burning of the scalp. They all had dizziness, nausea, and severe headaches. But of course, Virtus was the one to suffer from it the worst. And eventually he would get cancer from what occurred to him. And there was nothing that the doctors could really do to help heal or cure this wound. So practically for his entire life, this guy's going around covering it up with either like a wig or a hat or both. You would never, ever, ever, ever have seen this guy ever in public with his head exposed. When Virtus moved to Los Angeles in the 40s, he got a job at this very hospital where I'm standing at right now. This is County USC Medical Center. And at this hospital, he worked practically his entire adult life. Always wearing a toupee or a wig, always wearing a hat. And nobody that worked with Virtus in all of those years knew exactly what happened to him all the way back in 1927. So for about the last 2 hours or so, I was looking for Virtus's grave, and I had a hard time finding it. And I don't know why, because it should have been an easy find, because on the website here at the cemetery, all of the graves are GPSed. So it should have only took me but a few moments, but for some unknown reason, the accuracy of the location wasn't very accurate, but accurate enough to where it kept sending me to this tree, and I couldn't find it. And I walked over this entire patch of area of the cemetery, could not find it. And the reason why I couldn't find it was because, and I don't know how this happened, but the grave had actually been hidden by grass and earth and mud. So thankfully I got a shovel, we shoveled it out, and this right here, covered under earth, is the final resting place of Virtus Hardiman. Thank you for sharing your life with us. Boy, am I glad I did this story, because if I didn't come out here, this would have been covered up for many, many, many years. So oftentimes when the rainy season comes down, it'll sink the stones of particular graves deep into the earth, and then grass covers it up. Maybe somebody doesn't see it on a riding mower, and you have this. So I'm glad I found it. And listen, let me tell you, the kind of impact on a man's psyche to have this kind of physical wound that you've carried throughout your life, physical and mental. And he didn't have any kids. I mean, I don't know if he had girlfriends or whatever, but that's gotta be very, very difficult to be a young man of 25 and you wanna go out and meet girls and you have this hole in your head. And you gotta tell them, oh, hey, by the way. Yeah, how many times did he have that conversation? I don't know, but I'm pretty sure he had the conversation. And that could do nothing but bring a man's confidence down to the very bottoms of his shoes. A very tragic story. I want to read quickly from an interview. When somebody had asked Virtus if he was angry about what occurred to him as a little boy, he said this, get this, quote, "If I am angry, my prayers will not be answered because my heart's not right." I mean, what else needs to be said? And hopefully I can learn, and some of you out there can learn about something like that, because I'm sure some of you guys know sometimes I get a little agitated, I get a little angry, and it's really over not very much. Over not very much. So rest in peace to Virtus. God rest his soul, and I really do hope that his prayers were answered. Somehow, some way. Okay, guys, I'm out of here. On to the next story. I'll see you on the next one. I hope to anyways. Hope to see you. Peace out.